1954, a small bathroom in a Connecticut suburb, just past 11 at night. The house is entirely quiet. A woman stands before a slightly fogged vanity mirror, the warm yellow light casting soft shadows across the porcelain sink. With a familiar metallic click, she unscrews the lid of a heavy, thick white glass jar. The subtle, powdery scent of classic rose water fills the damp air. Her fingers scoop out a dollop of thick, cooling cream, working it smoothly across her skin in practiced, rhythmic upward strokes. But the strange part is this. Nothing on that counter looked expensive. She owned exactly one jar that cost less than $1, yet her skin possessed a radiant, effortless glow that women today chase with 12-step routines and hundreds of dollars. These old rituals did not vanish because they failed. They vanished because they were simply too cheap to keep selling. These are 15 forgotten cold cream rituals from the 1950s that actually reverse aging. Now, before we dive in, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. For decades, a single jar of cold cream was the undisputed cornerstone of American beauty. It was a makeup remover, a moisturizer, a healer, and a quiet nightly ritual. But the beauty industry soon realized a profitable truth. You cannot build a billion-dollar empire selling just one product that does everything. The single jar was quietly fractured into dozens of expensive serums, eye creams, and overnight masks. The old way was not primitive. Sometimes it was simply too efficient to sell. What disappeared was not just the product, but the deep household intelligence that surrounded it. We are counting down 15 of these vanished cold cream habits. Pay close attention when we reach number 1, because it reveals what women truly lost when they traded their grandmother's simplicity for modern routines. And the first one begins exactly where most days used to start, right at the porcelain sink. Number 15, the pre-wash tissue wipe. Before micellar waters and double cleansing oils took over drugstore shelves, women relied on the physical weight of cold cream to dissolve the day. They did not just wash their faces. They performed a ritual of removal. A generous scoop of Pond's or Noxzema was massaged into the skin, melting away heavy face powder and stubborn red lipstick. Then came the crucial step, a dry tissue, firmly sweeping upward to lift the grime before water ever touched the face. The friction of the tissue, combined with the thick emulsion, pulled impurities from the pores with a ruthless efficiency. Today we buy expensive makeup wipes that dry out the skin, but in 1954 that simple tissue wipe left a protective barrier intact. It was not just cleansing, it was conditioning in one fluid motion. Number 14, the upward anti-gravity stroke. The cream was only half the secret. The physical application was the other. A 1950s woman rarely pulled her skin downward. Applying cold cream was a mechanical discipline, demanding firm upward and outward strokes from the base of the neck to the forehead. You could hear the soft, rhythmic sound of fingers working against the skin, lifting the facial muscles night after night. Modern beauty culture sells us paralyzing injectables to freeze the face in place. But these women understood that consistency and physical touch were their best defense against time. The upward stroke was a quiet rebellion against gravity, practiced religiously at the vanity. Number 13, the heavy overnight shield. Modern skincare influencers call it slugging, acting as if they invented the concept of sealing the skin with a heavy ointment. But grandmothers in the mid-century already knew this secret. On bitterly cold winter nights, when the radiator heat threatened to suck every drop of moisture from the air, a woman would apply an exceptionally thick layer of cold cream and simply leave it there. It was a greasy, heavy shield that often stained the edges of cotton pillowcases, smelling faintly of mineral oil and beeswax. She did not need an $80 overnight recovery mask. She just needed the patience to let the heavy cream do its quiet work in the dark. Number 12, the hot washcloth steam. There is a distinct sound that belongs to a 1950s bathroom. The rushing of hot tap water hitting a porcelain basin, followed by the tight wringing of a thick terry cloth washcloth. After the cream had dissolved the day's makeup, a steaming hot cloth was pressed directly onto the face. The heat opened the pores, melting the wax in the cream and turning it into a luxurious, skin-softening oil. For a few seconds, breathing in that warm, floral-scented steam, A woman found a rare moment of complete stillness. We have replaced this deeply sensory habit with harsh exfoliating acids, trading the comforting warmth of a steaming cloth for the sting of modern efficiency. And once you notice how this simple white cream solves so many different problems, the larger truth becomes hard to ignore. This was not just a cheap product, it was household intelligence, a deep understanding of how to make $1 stretch across a dozen different needs. The industry did not want you to know how versatile this jar truly was. Number 11, the winter elbow and heel cure. That versatility meant the cold cream never stayed just on the face. In the dead of winter, when forced air heating left elbows dry and heels painfully cracked, the exact same jar came to the rescue. A generous layer of the cooling white cream was massaged into rough heels, immediately followed by pulling on a pair of thick cotton socks before bed. The heavy mineral oil base locked in the moisture, repairing the skin overnight. Today you are told to buy a specialized foot cream, a separate cuticle butter, and a dedicated body lotion. But a 1950s woman knew better. She understood that dry skin was just dry skin, and her trusty jar was more than capable of fixing it all. But the cold cream's magic did not end with nighttime routines. When the sun came up, that same jar stepped out of the bathroom and into the bedroom vanity, where the rules of daytime preparation were about to begin. Number 10, the powder-based primer. Long before the invention of silicone-based primers that promised to blur pores, a 1950s vanity held a simpler solution. Women would apply the sheerest layer of cold cream, letting it sink in until only a slight tackiness remained on the skin. Then using a thick velour puff, they pressed loose face powder directly onto the face. The cream grabbed the powder, creating a flawless, velvety finish that lasted through hours of housework or evening hosting. It was an exercise in balance. Too much cream and the makeup would slide. Just enough and the complexion looked like smooth porcelain. We buy $30 primers today to achieve a canvas that an old white jar provided for a fraction of the cost. Number 9, the razor burn barrier. Shaving legs in the mid-century often meant dealing with heavy, single-blade safety razors that were unforgiving on the skin. Instead of buying specialized shaving foams in pressurized cans, a woman simply reached for her cold cream. A generous coat applied to wet legs created an incredibly slick, protective barrier. The metal blade glided effortlessly, while the heavy mineral oils instantly moisturized the freshly shaved skin. There was no razor burn, no stinging red bumps, just smooth skin and the faint lingering scent of beeswax in the damp bathroom air. Number 8, the sunburn soother. During the blistering summers of the 1950s, sunscreen was a rarity and sunburns were common. But a mother always had a remedy waiting. She would take her jar of cold cream and keep it inside the heavy door of the Frigidaire. When her children came inside with scorched shoulders, or when she spent too long hanging laundry on the backyard line, that ice-cold cream was applied in thick white patches. The cooling sensation was immediate. The thick emulsion locked the remaining hydration into the skin, stopping the peeling before it even started. By this point, the pattern is no longer about just saving space on a shelf. It is about household intelligence. A woman in 1957 did not need a magazine to tell her what to buy for every minor inconvenience. She possessed the skill to adapt what she already had. The modern beauty industry wants us to believe that every problem requires a newly invented solution, but these women proved otherwise. Number 7, the cuticle softening soak. A mid-century housewife's hands were constantly at war with harsh powdered laundry detergents and scalding dishwater. Yet their manicures often remained remarkably neat. The secret was not a weekly salon treatment. After the evening dishes were dried and put away, she would sit at the kitchen table, take a tiny dab of cold cream, and firmly massage it into each cuticle. The thick wax softened the hard edges, while the repetitive, circular motion of her thumb brought a few moments of quiet reflection. It was a small act of restoring dignity to hands that had worked hard all day. Number 6, the hairline dye protector. Home hair color was gaining immense popularity, offering women a way to reinvent themselves without the expense of a parlor visit. But those early chemical dyes were notorious for staining the skin. Before applying the color, a woman would trace a heavy white line of cold cream directly along her hairline, over the tops of her ears and down her neck. It acted as an impenetrable wall. The dye could not break through the heavy grease. It was a clever, self-taught trick passed between friends over coffee, a testament to female resourcefulness. But as we move toward the final rules, the use of this simple cream shifts again. The next few habits were not just about solving physical problems. They were about how a woman carried herself through the world, preserving her identity when everything else demanded her time. Number 5. The neck and décolletage extension. A woman in the 1950s knew a harsh truth that the modern beauty industry often obscures. The neck always tells the truth about age. While today's routines often stop abruptly at the jawline or require a completely separate, heavily fragranced neck firming cream, the mid-century woman simply extended her cold cream ritual downward. With the same disciplined, sweeping strokes, she massaged the heavy cream into her neck and décolletage. It was an unspoken standard of elegance. By treating her neck with the exact same care and consistency as her face, she maintained a smooth, graceful elasticity well into her later years. It was not vanity, it was simply the discipline of finishing a job correctly. Number 4. The winter wind barrier. Before stepping out into a biting December wind to walk to the grocer or wait for the bus, a woman did not leave her skin defenseless. She would take just a whisper of cold cream and press it gently over her cheeks and the bridge of her nose. The thick beeswax and oils formed an invisible, protective armor against the freezing air, preventing the harsh windburn that could crack delicate skin. Today, we buy expensive barrier repair creams after the damage is already done. But these women understood preparedness. The cream was not just a cosmetic, it was a practical shield between her and a harsh world. The closer we get to number 1, the less this is about objects and the more it is about identity. These were not just habits to pass the time. They were quiet standards, repeated day after day until they became character. What looks small from the outside often carries the heaviest memory. Number 3. The 10-minute stress melt. Long before self-care became a marketed buzzword designed to sell bath bombs and luxury candles, women found their respite in a heavy white jar. On days when the house felt too loud, the chores too endless, and the mental load too heavy, a woman would apply an exaggerated mask-like layer of cold cream. Then she would simply sit. For 10 minutes, the intense cooling sensation on her skin forced her to pause and breathe. The thick cream slowly melting into her pores was a physical manifestation of letting go. She did not need to buy a retreat or a luxury spa day. She just needed 10 minutes of absolute stillness, grounded by the familiar scent of rosewater. Number 2. The grandmother's hand treatment. If you ask anyone who grew up in a mid-century home, this is the ritual they remember most vividly. A grandmother's hands were the hardest working tools in the house, constantly cooking, scrubbing, and mending. Yet at night, those hands were treated with profound respect. She would slather them in a thick, almost greasy layer of cold cream, then carefully pull on a pair of soft, white cotton gloves before turning out the lamp. The gloves trapped the body heat, baking the rich oils deeply into the skin. It was a beautiful paradox. Hands that performed the most grueling domestic labor all day were pampered like royalty at night. But all of these physical uses pale in comparison to the psychological weight of the final ritual. And now we reach the one that explains all the others, the reason these habits still feel so personal decades later. Number 1, the silent mirror confessional. It is 1956. The children are finally asleep, the television in the living room is turned off, and the damp dishcloths are neatly hung to dry over the kitchen sink. A mother walks down the dimly lit hallway and gently closes the bathroom door behind her. The soft metallic click of that lock was perhaps the most important sound of her entire day. This was the one room in the one 10-minute window that belonged entirely to her. She stands before the slightly fogged vanity mirror. She reaches for the heavy white jar of cold cream, the exact same brand her own mother used, and the one she has kept on her counter since she was a young bride. As she unscrews the lid, the familiar, comforting scent of rosewater and beeswax fills the small space. She takes a generous scoop of the thick, cooling white cream and begins the slow, rhythmic upward strokes. With every firm sweep of her fingers, she's not just dissolving face powder or removing stubborn red lipstick. She is wiping away the exhaustion, the endless demands of the household, and the heavy mental load of the day. This was not a desperate attempt to look younger for the next morning. It was a physical act of reclaiming herself before the night ended. Somewhere sitting quietly on the hallway floor, a young daughter is watching her mother through a narrow crack in the door. The little girl does not understand the ingredients, the anti-aging benefits, or the mechanical discipline of the upward stroke. What she is watching and what she is inheriting without a single word being spoken is a profound lesson in self-respect. She is learning that no matter how tired a woman is, she must carve out a few moments of absolute stillness to restore her own dignity. It was not vanity. It was armor. It was not a product. It was an inheritance. The modern beauty industry looked at this quiet, powerful ritual and decided it was simply too efficient to keep selling. They convinced us that to be beautiful, we had to be anxious. They told us we needed a 12-step routine, a specialized acid for every minor flaw, and a bathroom cabinet overflowing with expensive plastic bottles. We were taught to chase perfection through consumerism, abandoning the quiet confidence that our grandmothers found in a single $1 glass jar. The jar did not change. The marketing did. And what they took from us was not just our money, but the quiet, unhurried peace of that daily ritual. The object was small, the lesson was not. And as we look back at that simple white jar sitting under the warm bathroom light, the ultimate truth about these vanished routines becomes undeniably clear. These 15 rituals did not disappear because they were ineffective. They vanished because an industry cannot build a billion-dollar empire on a product that lasts a year and costs a single dollar. But when we traded that heavy glass jar for a bathroom cabinet full of expensive plastic bottles, we lost more than just a simple routine. We lost the quiet patience of the vanity. We lost the unspoken lessons of self-reliance, the discipline of the upward stroke, and the sacred mother-to-daughter knowledge passed down in the dim light of a hallway. We traded our quiet confidence for endless consumerism, yet those memories remain. Somewhere, an old vanity light is still glowing over a porcelain sink. Somewhere, a grandmother is still unscrewing a metal lid to wipe away the day with a simple white cream. And somewhere, a daughter is watching in the quiet dark, and without a word, the lesson begins again. What forgotten beauty routines do you remember your mother or grandmother using? Share your memories in the comments below. If you found comfort in this journey back to a simpler time, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the video on your screen to explore more vanished rules of the mid-century.